Welcome to the new and refreshed Morning Coffee, where two dynamic hosts bring a fresh perspective to the conversations you love, all over a cup of coffee. Whether you're a longtime listener or just tuning in, get ready for a daily dose of humor, warmth, and fresh energy.
Remember those good old days? I'm not talking about like childhood or anything, but the 90s.
Yeah.
Back when you'd actually wait for your favorite show to come back season after season.
Oh, the anticipation.
Right, the buzz. Those were the days.
And you know what else came with those, structured seasons?
What's that?
Shows that didn't completely break the bank.
That's right. It makes you wonder, in this whole world of endless streaming options and, let's be honest, kind of dwindling bank accounts, could, looking back, be the answer? Could the 90s, dare I say, hold the key to a more sustainable future for television?
It's a fascinating question, and honestly, the data seems to suggest it's not as far-fetched as it might sound. We've been doing a deep dive into some recent reports on, streaming viewership, production costs, all that fun stuff. And, well, a pretty clear picture is starting to emerge.
So walk me through it. What's the current state of things? Paint me a picture.
Okay. Imagine, a massive buffet overflowing with food.
Okay, sounds good so far.
Right. But then you realize you can only actually eat so much. You end up overwhelmed, maybe a little sick, and definitely not fully appreciating anything on your plate.
Okay, that's a terrifyingly accurate analogy for, my last 3 attempts to just choose something to watch.
Right.
But seriously, what does that actually look like, numbers-wise?
So one major study found that on most platforms, only the top 20 top 20 truly resonate with viewers.
Wow.
Everything else, it's a ghost town. And this deluge of content, it really impacts our ability to, choose and commit.
Too much of a good thing.
Basically, yeah.
But then, isn't that a problem for the streaming services, too? They're the ones spending a fortune on all these shows.
Exactly. And this is where it gets interesting. Take Disney Plus A, for example.
Okay.
They put out a ton of original series in a single year. 50?
50?
50. But get this. A measly 10 of those shows were hogging almost 80% of the total viewership.
Wow, 50 shows and only a handful are really making waves. That seems, I don't know, wildly inefficient. What's the strategy there?
That's $1 million question, isn't it? It seems like a shotgun approach, just hoping something sticks. Problem is, it's not exactly sustainable. Very, very few of those Disney Plus shows actually kept their audience a year later.
Interesting.
Which, suggests they're lacking that rewatchability of older series.
It's true. I can quote you entire scenes from, Friends, but ask you what happened last season on, pretty much any current show, and I'd be drawing a blank.
Right.
But okay, before we totally dive into the whole engagement piece.
Yeah.
Let's talk money. How much are these shows actually costing to make?
All right, buckle up. A recent report revealed that Marvel's Secret Invasion cost almost $250 million to produce.
You're kidding. $250 million. For a show that, if I'm being honest, I totally forgot existed. That's more than some Marvel movies.
Exactly. And it really points to a larger trend, Streaming services are shelling out these astronomical sums for content, and often there's just no guaranteed return on that investment.
It's a gamble.
Totally. And the whole thing hinges on this idea of a constantly growing subscriber base, which, hasn't exactly materialized like they'd hoped.
Okay, so we've got way too much content, crazy high budgets, and viewers who can't seem to commit. Sounds like a recipe for disaster. But what if there's another way?
There might be. And it involves, hitting rewind a little bit. What if, instead of constantly chasing the next big thing, streaming services took inspiration from a simpler time? A time when shows weren't just content, they were events.
Okay, I'm intrigued. You're talking about the 90s again, aren't you?
Exactly. Think about it. Back then, you had a limited number of shows, right? Premiering on a predictable schedule, often with, months between seasons.
And you'd actually, look forward to them. It wasn't just another show to add to the watch list. It was an event. But how does that translate to, today's world, where everything's about instant gratification?
It's not about, going back to grainy footage and dial-up internet or anything.
Right.
It's more about, taking those core principles, quality over quantity, a little bit of planned scarcity, dare I say, patience, and applying it to the current landscape.
Okay, walk me through this. How would this whole 90s reboot actually work?
Okay, so imagine this. Streaming services, they adopt a more curated approach, right? Release fewer shows overall, but with higher production value. Real focus on rewatchability.
So less is more. Instead of 50 mediocre shows, we get like 10 really great ones.
Exactly. And those shows, they'd have a guaranteed return every year, right? Create genuine anticipation, buzz.
I can already picture myself like counting down the days.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that mean sacrificing those big budget, special effects heavy shows? The kind we've kind of gotten used to.
Not necessarily. I mean, there's always going to be a place for those tentpole productions. But I think by focusing on a smaller number of really high quality shows overall, streaming services could allocate resources more efficiently, which could even lead to, more impressive spectacles when they do arrive.
So we're not talking about like scrapping CGI altogether.
Yeah.
Just using it more strategically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finding that balance. Now, remember how we were talking about those agonizingly long wait times between seasons?
Oh man, don't remind me. It's like they expect us to remember plot points from 2 years ago. I can barely remember what I had for lunch yesterday.
Right. And that's another area where I think that 90s model could be a game changer by, embracing a more streamlined production schedule.
Oh.
Shows could come back more regularly, say once a year, like clockwork.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this. Consistent releases, shows that actually feel special, and maybe, just maybe, we can finally cancel some of those streaming subscriptions we're barely using. But realistically, do you really see this happening? I mean, the streaming giants, they seem pretty set in their ways.
I think there's definitely a shift happening. Remember that whole Disney example, right?
Yeah.
Their CEO, recently actually, he acknowledged the need for some cost cutting and a more streamlined content strategy overall.
So even the Mouse House is feeling the pinch, huh? That's saying something.
It seems like that era of, just throwing money at any idea and hoping it sticks is winding down. Viewers are way more discerning now, and while the streaming services are being forced to adapt.
About time.
Yeah.
But how do we, as viewers, help this whole thing along? Do we need to start picketing Netflix headquarters with signs demanding a return to 90s production values?
It's simpler than that. We vote with our wallets and our attention, right? By, supporting shows that prioritize quality, that understand the power of anticipation, and honestly, that respect our time.
So it's about being more intentional.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of just mindlessly clicking on whatever autoplays next.
100%. And you know what? It's not just about individual viewing habits. Imagine the conversations we could be having.
Oh, yeah.
If we were all, on the same page, eagerly waiting for a show to come back, dissecting a crazy plot twist.
Ah, the lost art of the water cooler conversation. It's true, though. Some of my fondest memories, I swear, are from, back in the day, debating plot twists with colleagues at work, when we actually had to wait a whole week to find out what happened next.
Exactly. That shared experience, that collective anticipation. It's something worth, reclaiming, It's about going from, passive consumption to active engagement.
It really is. It's the difference between, scarfing down a meal and actually tasting each bite.
Perfect analogy. And just like a well-paced meal leaves you, satisfied but not stuffed, I think a more deliberate approach to TV, it could make the whole experience so much richer, more rewarding overall.
And maybe even free up some room on our credit card statements to, actually do some of the things we're always watching on TV.
Yeah.
But seriously, it sounds like a win-win, right?
Mm-hmm.
Viewers get these high-quality shows that respect their time, respect their intelligence, and the streaming services, they get a model that's actually sustainable, potentially way more profitable.
It's a way forward, for sure. A way to move past this content overload and kind of rediscover what made appointment television so special in the first place.
The future of TV might just be learning from its past. Who knew?
Right. And again, it's not about literally turning back the clock or anything. It's more about taking those lessons learned, using them to build something new, something way more engaging, more sustainable, and honestly, just more fulfilling for everyone involved.
It's definitely something to think about. Next time you're scrolling endlessly, through this ocean of content, and nothing's really grabbed you, maybe, just maybe, it's not you. Maybe it's the system. And maybe, just maybe, the answer lies. Bringing back a little bit of that